to the program, I always love to say. But Raymond did remind me the last time that I should say, welcome to grab a coffee. My name is Kasiate, Simon Kasiate. It's our 11th episode in actual recording, discounting the live recording we did where we featured prominently 3 incredible Ugandans, and we've so far had the pleasure last week to drop the first of a 3-episode series where we had this deep conversation with no less than the Permanent Secretary and Secretary to the Treasury at the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Ramadan Gobi. So now we're back to normal programming. Raymond,
yes,
how are you doing, my man?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. My theory is starting to check out. You were in Nairobi last week. There were protests in Nairobi last week. My theory now makes sense. 3 times you've been in Nairobi, 3 times have been mass protests. And I think that President Ruto needs to give me some money to do some investigations.
On the contrary, maybe I am there. Some argue to ensure that they do not escalate to the worst levels than is always promised by those who participate in
Is it? No, but I've been fine. You did mention we interviewed, we had a successful live recording. We actually haven't talked about how that went.
Oh, yes. Come think about it.
It was very, I think the night before we were very worried about what would happen. On the morning of, we had a very successful recording. I was very amused to learn, at least from the PSST, a lot of things around payment systems, government delays in payments, who is getting what money. The nugget he dropped on inequality, whether it's growing or not, I think that was also very interesting. Gini coefficient.
Exactly, the Gini coefficient, which is between 0 and 1.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And of course, the homework he gave us, which is to go and read a very specific chapter of a book. So it was a very successful recording, I would say.
And also, we need also to debunk the lie that you presented to him that this podcast was certainly not my brainchild. I'm not claiming it was my brainchild, but I thought at that point would have said it was a co-created idea that came out of simply grabbing a coffee and
I think that the Permanent Secretary to the Treasury really knows what was happening at that point.
But also more interesting, I think, and he should revisit my answer to the question or the observation he made that he had not heard of podcasts in any big sense in Uganda.
Exactly.
Until he started to grab a coffee with us. And I told him the reason he hadn't was because there is always a perennial absence of financing for such incredible feats to take place in this country.
But it's also that...
that he came on the program, so we need to follow through with the idea that for this program to sustainably be able to do what it does, is for financing to come through. So I hope that he follows through.
I mean, we have to be, first of all, incredibly grateful to our subscribers who've kept us going.
Absolutely.
One, by making sure they subscribe and listen. And then those who bought tickets to the live show. I have so many people asking when the next live show is. We have the date in mind already.
Absolutely.
We just won't say yet until we get to the D-Day. But that's a very important part. It's also important for us to have a community of listeners who we interact with. They give us feedback. We talk to them, who they want to listen to, what they want to listen to. I think that's something that we need to grow more important.
But also importantly, those who believed in us when few believed in our vision. Those who said, okay, we'll go with you guys and, work with you. No doubt, Endiro for offering what should be their prime time location and moment, a Saturday morning into the afternoon, but also never mind that we were there on Friday night and disrupted a bit of their programming to have the whole setup coming through. So we are eternally grateful to Endiro, and I think we could do with a lot more of such engagements. And then, of course, the others who came through, like DVI, to provide us with a incredible sound system. Our friends, the Zonke DJs, who made sure they had another channel for folks to log out in case the conversations are boring, to just listen.
That was a very interesting idea, by the way, that in the middle of this very serious conversation, you could just tune out and go to an Amapiano set.
I don't want to mention some guys I saw going into Amapiano, but certainly our friend Kasheka knows certainly who I'm talking about. And then, no doubt, Showmax from MultiChoice.
Yes. So we are now confident that we have a sponsor for the podcast, and Showmax MultiChoice is our sponsor for the podcast, at least for the foreseeable future. And we'll tell people a little bit more about what we're doing with Showmax.
Let's not even waste time. Let's just go straight away and go. So I'll go with what they certainly are doing. Showmax is unveiling a whole new role for entertainment with Showmax Now. Whether you're catching the FIFA Club World Cup up or simply catching up with some Kampala cream, Showmax is where all your favorite entertainment is.
And of course, you can watch that anywhere, anytime, on your phone for just 11,400 shillings per month. Subscribe now via Momo and never miss a moment. Showmax now.
There we go. Our friends at Showmax.
But have you ever watched Kampala Cream?
I did make a scroll through it. Of course, I get to know a bit about everything in this, and that's when it dawned on me that I may be living in a different city from the one I claim to be living in.
I was on a set before Mami Deb of Kampala Cream came on. I was being interviewed before her, and I was amazed at the fact that I didn't know who she was, and I had to learn her superstar at that moment.
Thank you. So there are people in this town, very unassuming, but quite very impactful in their own way. Talking about impact, Raymond, you did raise a good observation. Indeed, through my travels of last week in different capitals, I happened to land in Nairobi towards the weekend, and mainly really to check out my domestics, but most importantly to run the Nairobi City Marathon. So I'm happy to tell you that I did run the Nairobi City Marathon, which is along the expressway, and I went for the full marathon, 42 kilometers, scored 4 hours 35 minutes, which is not a personal best, but in the circumstances, the weather was really cold, the knees are being hit by the tarmac, but also I wasn't concentrating much on the running. I was just enjoying the skyline view of Nairobi and this picturesque providence of the expressway and what that could portend, and that drew me to make comparisons with a beautiful city, Kampala, and imagine what a Kampala City Marathon would look like, on whether we have the roads on which people can comfortably run and enjoy the scenic beauty. And you wouldn't want to say that it's a comparison worth making, because if you know the state of our roads, we can only hope against hope that the things will be done.
I don't know if I wouldn't make the comparison, having lived in both cities. I think, one, we have the Seven Hills, which is a really fantastic idea in which Kampala is built. Two, we've just failed to turn around our marathons to make them as steadfast as the Nairobi Marathon, or even the Stanchart Marathon that happens in Nairobi.
Yes.
And I think that may be down to private sector working with the city authorities and trying to make sure that a city marathon is actually a city marathon. I know many people have tried. ABSA, for example, has tried to run the Seven Hills Marathon. NSSF used to do that before.
And then, of course, you had MTN, which perennially for many years did the Kampala Marathon. That was a flagship presentation in their calendar for the year. It was a huge media property. I'm still trying to wrap my head around why they stopped it. Maybe it could have been logistical and other challenges, but in terms of brand visibility and also attaining to the actual reason as to why the run was being done, which is a CSR thing. I think they were scoring above the
I think one day we should have a proper podcast about why things succeed in Nairobi and they wouldn't succeed in Kampala.
Well, I don't think the guys who organized the cancer run certainly would agree with you, but it's also another marathon that is one that's deep into meeting its objectives, and the fact that it has the ability to be run across the country and not necessarily putting it in Kampala is one of those. So there's a lot of conversations around the growing culture of recreational running, and I'm happy to belong to that society. In fact, there are conversations around a huge city marathon for independence. And I think that in one of our conversations, we should bring one of the people, of course, in Team Matoke to come and explain to us this recreational.
Yeah, we have two podcasts that we've committed to. We committed to go and do one with the Rwenzori Marathon team, who are doing the Tascalite Marathon in Rwenzori. They've been able to attract almost all the good recreational runners from all kinds of cities. I saw people from Doha, people from Pretoria, people from Cape Town who are coming down to Kampala to run that marathon in Rwenzori. And then we also have the Portal City Marathon, which is coming up. I think that one we will see.
And then, of course, our friend Francis Gimara is now putting the Gulu Marathon that comes every December.
I've run the Gulu Marathon.
I too.
Once.
And beautiful sceneries, flat terrain, great people. And then we just saw recently that he had one of these folks that comes to accredit Iran and put it on the international map, coming down to Gulu and, now into the final stages of stamping it as one of the flagship marathons that is globally recognized. Which I think now we are going places.
Yeah.
Running back to Nairobi, indeed, it was interesting running the city marathon on Sunday with all the bars around, and then the next day, Monday, Saba.
Yes.
Raymond, I have never felt Nairobi so eerie quiet. And it was like, it just reminded me quickly of the total lockdown we had during COVID. That I walked from my humble place in Lavington to go to the mall, and I can swear to you, on James Gishuru, you could barely even see a pussycat cross, especially after 1 o'clock, because even the supermarkets that had dared to open earlier, some shops that had tried to open earlier, at 1 o'clock, that's when the things begin to pick momentum. They closed shop. Car bonds that are always showing beautiful cars. I love walking on James Gishuru because I get to see beautiful latest model of cars in their showrooms. These guys drove out their cars from what we knew as open air showrooms. So it was just green field. Quiet.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I then have now to get on my phone to now see exactly where the pressure points were, the pain points, what's happening around. And,
I think Kenya has reached I would call a tractional point in the conflict between its citizens and the government. There was, of course, mass disapproval of Ruto. First, that started with a high cost of living, which was visited upon them by COVID, changes in global things. And then from there, you had the finance bill, which tried to introduce new taxes on Kenyans.
On an already
burdened
population.
And
even worse, Raymond, sorry if I interject, that Ruto came into power riding a populist campaign with promises that the circumstances, as he found out when he became president, could not offer. He came riding the populist thing of the mama bogas, the young people. He's going to create 4 million jobs in the first year of coming into office. And now these guys took him for his word, believed in him, hook, line, and sinker. And then when he came in, as we say nowadays in Uganda, kuground.
Even in Nairobi, people say kuground vitu ni different.
Then he's failed to reconcile that to be candid about it and say, guys, this is it. Or possibly the populace is saying, we can't be fed on lip service. You didn't come in as a stranger to governance or government. You were vice president. So you should have known better than ourselves to make this kind of promises that then you should be able to fulfill.
Yeah, but all of Africa's biggest economies are having problems in their cities. You start with Cape Town. There were protests there for the better half of last year. Move to Cairo. There have been protests there. Cost of living too. And Nairobi, which is
with the government falling,
Yes, then Nairobi, which is the third biggest of them. For me, the first thing is one.
Is it Nairobi? We can now first go to Nigeria, then before we come to Nairobi.
Okay, both Lagos and Abuja had their own protests.
Absolutely.
And SARS protests, which lasted almost 9 months. And then came the ones of Nairobi. I think that one is you've got to have some humility when you're leading an African government, particularly a government like Kenya's. One, they have borrowed themselves to a hilt. Absolutely. So there's very little fiscal room to make dramatic changes in spending. Number two, the government has this mass young people who are unemployed, got nothing to do, they're hustlers, they've got no sense of cost of living or how they earn their money. And they're genuinely asking government, what are you doing about our circumstances? Now, Ruto exploited that to say, the reason you people are poor, the reason you people don't have jobs is because these people in the dynasties are taking all the jobs, these people in the dynasties, they're the corrupt ones. Now the dynasties are gone.
And he's there.
Yes, he's
And what
charge.
are the young people now getting to hear? That he's building a multi-billion Kenyan shilling chapel in the grounds of State
Yes,
House.
but not just that. He's had all these cabinet secretaries who show off immense wealth.
Absolutely.
People who wear all manner of expensive watches. They are riding on choppers. They are driving the latest cars. And they're unapologetic. But you also have advisors close to Ruto who don't carry empathy.
Absolutely.
In the middle of protests, you are abusing and mocking people. Those things rile up.
Absolutely.
Rile up.
You saw what Mukonen, one of the cabinet secretaries, was talking about. Everyone is concerned about the brutality of the police. There is a young man that has died. Clearly, all fingers leading to police brutality, including the very poor that orchestrated the coming out to speak honestly. And you're saying, no, if someone comes to attack a police station, please shoot to kill. That rubs the wrong way.
Yeah, it does. It does. So, I mean, Nairobi is in that place, and I don't think it's going to improve. I see also that they've entered the early election phase because now Ruto's opponents like Matiang'i, Rigathi Gachagua, who may not be able to run in the election, the former CJ Maraga, all of them are out campaigning, open campaigning.
And then we saw one of his economic advisors, Kuria, stepping away from the role. And maybe that could be something to show that you could show up as a running mate for one of the other guys running against.
I wish him luck.
But Kuria.
I wish, if these people are protesting Ruto, I don't think they will vote Kuria.
These Kenyan politicians have a way of laundering themselves and cleaning themselves up. I mean, for what?
But for me, the thing that I'm even most worried about is now, and I hope many Ugandans are watching what's happening in Nairobi and finally starting to say, okay, can politics stop? Politics and politicians, they need to stop being snake oil salesmen. This idea that tomorrow, if you're in government, everything magically improves is a lie. That you become president, the roads will get fixed, that, street lights will start working, that everyone will magically get a job and earn above minimum wage. That's a huge lie.
There is a truth somewhere, especially if you look at the Ugandan context.
Yeah.
President Museveni picked his nomination forms from his party headquarters and told us, loud and clear, that the reason he's coming back is to escort we, the Bazukuru, into a corrupt-free Uganda. For a man who has led us for now close to 40 years, I want to believe that if he actually meant it, this man, President Museveni, can deliver a corrupt-free
Very impossible. Very impossible. So again, these are political realities of our time. And these are the political realities of our time. If you pick and arrest a civil servant, one, you can't sack a permanent secretary, for example. The president doesn't have the powers to sack a permanent secretary.
What are you talking about? He fired the
He can.
Isabalija.
Of course, Isabalija left, but if he had put up a legal challenge, there would have been a problem because those people are permanent and pensionable.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they are permanent and pensionable, so you'd have to struggle with that. But I think...
the things President Museveni is considering doing for me, he had better than not think of making me a permanent secretary, because there I would give him a...
There is also the added burden of the legal proof required to take away someone for corruption. I don't think that many of our prosecutors meet that legal threshold.
Even if they did, they would still fall under the same sort of corruption. That they themselves would be corrupted not to do exactly what they're supposed to do.
And the third and more painful is the intricate nature in which corruption works in this city. That more often than not, that corruption ends up at the doorstep of the president, either through families, friends, cronies, relatives, political brokers. Someone is always involved in those dealings, and they make it impossible to fight corruption. Indeed,
it validates what one of our senior colleagues in the industry once said, that corruption is not how, in fact, Uganda is failing. It's, in fact, how Uganda is surviving and, I dare say, thriving.
The places where anti-corruption fights have succeeded, and you'd have to look, for example, China, the anti-corruption drive.
Or even Singapore, for that matter.
Ushered in by the Red Army. Singapore, where, of course, human rights concerns were ignored.
Absolutely.
You can shoot and kill someone for things like that. In those places, there was a massive upturn of the political elite. The people who were carrying out the anti-corruption drive didn't care whether you were political elite or royalty descended from the bloodline of ethnic leadership. They dealt with you the way you came. And until we can get to that point where people say, it doesn't matter if you're a nephew to the president, if you're the biggest power broker in the NRM, we will deal with you. Until we can get that point, I don't think you'll fight corruption.
But then there are many things that we are trying to put in place as a country that indeed may end up like the situation you're just describing. Let's go to the subject of Balaalo in northern Uganda. We all, and your listeners, you know exactly the contestations around there, that you have all these heavily cowed people coming from wherever they come, getting into an area. Some are claiming they vote genuinely. but the people there are saying they possibly did not buy genuinely because there are some among them who are unscrupulous and sold to them communal land that is, for the community, for a clan, and cannot be sold. But they're in there and there's been that discontent. But like you said, when you look into the finer details of who are these people, the majority of whom, especially who use firepower to entrench themselves further onto that land, either by getting it on the cheap or getting it for free, or occupying government forest reserves and other places earmarked for government work like ranches. These are people that have a connection to the presidency. Maybe a relative, maybe a power broker, and all that. So with him coming out and issuing presidential directives upon presidential directives, have them go, and how is he going to succeed in ensuring that that does happen against the fact that some of the affected are...
I've seen the army get involved in the removal of cows and people from northern Uganda. And I can see that the massive use of force in that regard to try and implement the executive order. I also must say I had a nearly 2-hour long phone call with a leader from the northern Uganda community. He's a national leader, but he's also a leader from the northern Uganda community. And maybe one day we'll have him, grab a coffee and have this conversation with him. And I got a new appreciation of the matter. And the appreciation is that majority of the lands in northern Uganda were deserted during the wartime. People went into IDP camps. Those lands had been held communally. There had not been land titling before then. So when people went into the IDP camps, at the end of the war, people started to return into the lands.
Or some never returned to those lands because of the trauma those lands remind them of. That there are people who are sole survivors from an entire 2 generations. That you, Raymond, lost your brothers and sisters and parents and their parents, that you can't go back to where you left because of that. So you prefer to live in...
Not just that. So on this phone call, we also ended up looking at census data. So you might know this, for example, on human development indicators, northern Uganda was on the downturn all the way until 2010.
Absolutely.
They had the least number of people going to school, the least access to health, the least number of people employed, the economies there were not functional.
Absolutely.
So the explanation, the long and short, the leader was telling me was, look here, this is also an ethnographic issue. It's not just ethnic to us, it's an ethnographic issue. That if somebody had a war, and he was referring this time to someone had a war in Toro, and you had to flee, and then you came back, you haven't had a chance at education, you haven't had a chance to earn money, and people are offering you all these, what are considerably large sums of money for your land, you will take them. It will be a due consideration for the land, but it will in effect affect the way that your rights over that land are. So the biggest contestation the Balaalo have with the local community there is that the Balaalo themselves have become economically prosperous in a region where people have not traditionally been economically prosperous. And that's become not just an ethnic matter, but also a political matter. Now, as more people in northern Uganda get into the elite class and the elite bubble, as they start to earn money, they want to be able to own land. And they realize they can't own land because this land is being held by these people who are well-heeled, who can protect it using guns. And that fight has slowly sipped from being a political problem to a social problem, now to becoming an economic problem.
Raymond, I'll share with you a personal story coming in from way back in around 2014, where a friend of mine, Peter Katusi, and I've not asked his permission to share this story, but I want to share it for purposes of context, that as young men trying to build ourselves, we put resources together and decided that we're going to buy land somewhere that we can be engaged in big-time agricultural practices. We both come from, Bugangadi in Rukunji, where the population density is such that when I'm seated in the middle of my land and I stretch my left foot, my Uncle Henry will have to tap my foot and say, Sebo, your foot is in my land. That's how densely populated we were. And it gets worse every single year because we are very productive in every sense of the word, even children. So the fragmentation of land is so high. So Peter and I, knowing that from Bugangari there's no way we are even able to get an acre of virgin land that we can have to ourselves, we went and moved across and went to Kayunga and found this land, virgin land, sold to by a genuine guy, 248 acres, I remember very well. And interestingly, it had two titles, one for 200 acres and the other for 48 acres. We had clean title in terms of all the searches were done. And the seller was a very amiable guy that Peter had known for years. So he was a client at his law firm. And so went on the ground. And the people on the ground, indeed, there were some squatters on the land who, the guy who sold to us had trounced in courts of law, state house land, whatever. Every authority had indeed given this man clean possession of his land. So we went in there, met them, they were happy to see us, introduced us to the neighbors who had been squatters on the land. And because we knew we were not going to permanently reside on the land, Peter and I made a decision to say, we can pick maybe 5 families of these squatters who clearly we can see are now living in squalor, in the little township of Galilaya. And as a trade-off, to protect our interests on the land, to supervise our workers, supervise our livestock when we bring it, let's give them the 48 acres and we keep the 200 acres. Magnanimously as that. And oh boy, how happy these guys were. We got a leader and we seeded the 48. We showed them this is the 48. We had the demarcations. I showed them we have the title. You will live on it, but we will not transfer to you because you are many families. But you can be sure we will not lay claim to it. But the condition is that you protect us at 200. Happy. That was our first visit there. The next visit we went now to go and fence up the place and all that. Now we found some of the members of these 5 families had now come into the 200 acres that Peter and I owned. And what was their claim? No, we have to be resident in there so that someone else does not come. It made sense. Gullible as we were, we said, okay, let me tell you, between that time and the next time we went to visit the place, President Museveni showed up in Kayunga during his campaign for the 2016 election. And at that time, there were questions of people coming into Kayunga and buying land. Now, Kayunga is, I do not know of any cosmopolitan place like Kayunga because across from our land, you could see the districts of Amolatal and Apache. Yet this side, we were in Buganda. But our neighbors were people that spoke all sorts of languages. I didn't know there was a language of people called Bakenyi. There.
Yes, Bakenyi are a mobile population.
Exactly.
But they are fishermen mostly.
Thank you. Because our land touched the banks of the Nile and had a long stretch along. It was a beautiful piece of land. Long story short, President Museveni says, no one should be evicted from their land, blah, blah, blah. He made those, because I think there were concerns about evictions and land grabbing and all. Never mind that Peter and I had bought our land genuinely from a guy that owned it genuinely from generations and inherited from his father. We became victims to the extent that the next time we went there, we were literally chased with machetes from the very guys that we had magnanimously brought onto the land. Raymond, we lost clean possession of 248 acres of land. Peter and I have the title in our armpits. Clean, we have it. But we don't have possession of the land. And this is 2016. Today is 2025. So we're talking about 9 years. Is it 9?
Yeah.
Close to 10 years.
Yeah.
Thing is, don't we risk having such situations of disenfranchised genuine people that bought clean title, clean land, but because of this blanket sweeping of a presidential directive.
Yeah. I mean, it's an electoral issue from Museveni. I don't think.
And why brought in the 2016? And even there are no coincidences here. Again, it was an election.
Yeah, time. It's an electoral issue from Museveni, but it's also going to become a socio-economic issue because now land is going to become ethnicized everywhere it is in the country. People are going to say we are the indigenous tribe on this land, and because we're indigenous, you should leave. It takes humility to learn from the polities that have succeeded on land management. And
no, but then this has been going on for many years. I mean, like
Buganda,
you said, Buganda here, almost every tribe has a piece of land in Buganda.
With title on it.
And with title
you can claim possession over the land.
Thank you. So I also now fear for my own relatives in Kamwenge, which is
us in Toro,
place.
we have been very kind and keen with land ownership. People have come, Bafuruchi have come, we've got a lot
I have relatives in Kamwenge in a village called Chabanda, to be very exact, where my father's brother lived. I think for all the life I knew, he lived there.
Yeah, and it's titled, you can also enforce possession. I'm just worried now that if we move into that direction, every ethnic community is going to do the same, to say, this land is ethnic to us. You chased people from the other side, from the northern part of Uganda. We're also going to chase people from our part.
Then what will happen in places like Kibale and that mid-Bunyoro area where the Bachiga came in as Bafuruchi, have, immersed themselves in that society, have taken on even political leadership, have carried out intermarriages. So what's the end to this? And I thought that this was clear as a geographical area called Uganda. A Ugandan should be allowed or is allowed by law to live and settle anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, that's the constitution we have, the 1995 constitution, which says, you can buy and own land anywhere you want in the country. You have a freedom of possession, freedom of expression. And I think over time, we can say that constitution is slowly running its course. If not, it has already run its course. We now need to have an actual new conversation on what is the type of Uganda we're going to have in the next 10, 15 years. And I don't think that conversation can start anywhere else except from the NRM. Unfortunately, it can't start anywhere else except from the NRM, because they are the ones who are the large land owners. They have the wealthy elite in their backyards. They are the ones in charge of the arms of the state, and they are the ones in charge of the state too.
So you are simply going back to what you said earlier on about politicians and them stop being snake oil salesmen.
Yeah.
And in direct reference to this particular issue, I would draw your attention to when the National Unity Platform did go to Eastern Uganda and started, getting into memorandum of understanding with war claimants from the Teso region and saying, look, you are duly owed this, you lost this, and so the memoranda is such that you will be compensated adequately when we come to power. Do you actually think that some of the things could take place and can be promised by other political groups?
I've often said, look here, the National Unity Platform is a party of agitation. It's not the party of action. It's a party of agitation. It's where people go to agitate against the ills of the state. But it's not where people see the power of the state resting. So the power of the state is still very much rested in the NRM. It's unlikely that that's going to change anytime soon. Maybe, in the future, some drastic black swan event we don't know of might happen. But the members who constitute the core part of the NRA are going to be here for long. Even if they are defeated, even if the National Unity Platform came into power, it would spend the next 5-10 years campaigning against the ills of the NRM.
Absolutely. So
it will be campaigning against the record of the NRM. So the NRM is still a very influential party in the nature and politics of the country.
So it goes back to possibly what President Ruto is having to deal with, and Kenyans are telling him in his face and say, look, this is not time to start blaming previous regimes, because at a public rally, I think just as in this week that we are closing, he did say, but wait a minute, you Kenyan Gen Zs and young people, you're putting on a lot of pressure for jobs as if you had jobs before I became president, and when I became president, you lost jobs. So it's an endemic issue that has been from Jomo Kenyatta to Moi to Kibaki.
I keep telling many young people that, yes, it's true, we need a successful and peaceful transition of power. But two things can be true. A successful and peaceful transition of power does not guarantee that there will be a change in economic and political environment of the country. It really doesn't mean the same thing. In any case, the hard data is there. Tanzania and Kenya have had successful changes in government, peaceful transitions in government. Their per capita incomes are not very far away from us who've had the same president for 40 years.
True.
So it's very unlikely. On matters of state development, it's very unlikely that changes in government will change state development massively, unless you have a small committed elite that take over the state, run roughshod, and maybe use autocratic means. I don't see anything fundamental changing.
And we have had an opportunity for such leadership in this country, but every time we get to the polls and you look at his name on the ballot paper and say, but wait a minute, I love you, General Mugisha Muntu, but I'm voting someone else. And
that's the tragedy. It's a tragedy of the politics of the country, that everyone wants a Mugisha Muntu style leadership. No one is prepared for it. It could also be very disorienting. I'd be happy to tell Muntu that, look at what Abiy Ahmed did. He came into power. He was a roughshod, very serious leader. He executed massive reforms in Ethiopia, led the country down into a civil war. And now the country is just recovering from a civil war, and he has realized that maybe you need to carry everyone along. You can't go the journey alone.
Well, we've seen places where, but the circumstances, of course, are different. When you look down south in Rwanda, the circumstances are different because it was a rallying point for a recovering country from the darkest part of any country's history, which is a genocide, and a massive one that was 100 days, 1 million people dying in the most grotesque manner. So the recovery from which, for President Kagame to be the president he is today, who, is development oriented but runs roughshod, doesn't allow you to cut corners, it's a context that I don't think we in Uganda are prepared for, like you rightly said.
Yes, but there are nuances in Rwanda's leadership that people don't talk about. There are nuances about which party gets what position of leadership. Those nuances exist. There are nuances on how government spends its development budget. There are nuances on who is the leader of the army at what point in time.
Yes.
Those nuances are very unique to the Rwandan political system.
Exactly.
It's just that they've perfected the art of running their political system with those nuances. Yeah.
Well, looking at our end, there is not quite what we'd call nuances, but for me, it's the disappointment that comes with service delivery, especially for basic services like infrastructure development. Raymond, I did see this week President Museveni now visiting our area of Wachiso and all that, which many of you claim is Kampala. You who live in Wachiso, but when you go to your villages, you claim to be coming from
I live in Kampala Central, as you know.
Well, I live in Nakawa, which is Kampala, but many of my friends in Jira, where we are recording this podcast from, claim to be in Kampala, but they actually are in Wachiso district. And we've seen President Museveni traversing the places, going to places like Kasokoso and asking questions around PDM and the like. What caught my eye for me was him going to wave the flag at the Matuga, Kasangati, Chira Road. They said he was commissioning it. What exactly do they mean by commissioning? This has been a construction site for the last over 4 years.
Yeah.
A stretch of kilometers, I can't remember the number of kilometers, that could have been done in 1 year. And that's why I brought the parallels to Nairobi. When Uhuru was, in his second term, he went all out massively for physical infrastructure around the city. All these highways, the expressways, and the like. And they did them in record time. But you find a road like Matuga, Kasangati Chira, a major decongesting road for the choke points around this city, taking that long. And then towards the 2026 election, President Museveni is doing a PDM tour, which I thought PDM is PDM. Then you get the usual joyriders from the Ministry of Works. I'm disgusted by some of their antiques, and I'm not going to talk about the lounge at the airport and the like, since they claim that, it's a private concession.
I thought we had skipped that. That's the reason we didn't do a podcast last week.
But anyway, bring President Museveni to commission a road that has been under works for over 5 years. Yet the timeline from the time when they broke ground was that this road would be delivered in less than 5 years. That disgusts me to date about the late delivery of infrastructure projects for this country. And clearly, I carry the same frustration even from places where I have worked. Raymond, you know very well that I had a good time working at the country's largest construction site by scale and financing, only perhaps rivaled by the Uganda Railway, and we're looking at the stretch from Mombasa to Gulu.
Yes.
Branching off to Kasese. And that is the Karuma Hydropower Station. Raymond, when I joined UEGCL, there was a timeline to when Karuma would be commissioned. And for the years I was there, the timeline kept going
being
forward.
shifted.
To the extent that I remember one of my last assignments was to say in November of a certain year, we would have commissioned a Karuma. That year came, it was August, and was being told that it's now 98% physical completion. And I kept asking the team of these incredible engineers, wonderful guys, including the boss of there, Engineer Harrison Mutikang, and saying, what is this 2% that is going to defeat us to deliver this project?
In time.
In time, within cost, and to agree technical specifications. Those are the words I have my standard lines that will deliver Karuma within time, to agree technical specifications, and within budget. Alas, it didn't happen in time. And yet, at every single day I was at UEGCL, there was a contractor on site, an owner's engineer on site, and the government supervising agency on site. Questions abound as to why we never deliver government projects in time. Even when we managed to deliver Isimba on time, at the time, commissioned it and all that. The questions around the integrity of a Simba hydropower station, we all know them. That now a new Chinese contractor is coming on board to rectify mistakes made by the previous contractor in full view of an owner's engineer, and a government agency supervising, and a ministry. We need to take responsibility of these delays. I mean, Ugandans cannot be taken.
Your anger is palpable. We can see it. But
remember, after that, then many years down the road, I joined Kampala Capital City Authority. There,
you promised us a construction site,
which I think roads. I delivered greatly in as far as disrupting you. And
none of those roads has been completed since you left.
Thank you. But I'm looking. They told me that the Kampala City Roads Rehabilitation Project is going to be a 3-year thing. And I live on one of those roads, Old Port Bay Road and Port Bay Road. So I know the timelines that I was given technically to share to the public. I am still within those timelines. I hope that the contractor and KCCA deliver within that timeline so that my professional integrity is not dented. Because you see, Raymond, when you come in as the face and voice of an institution of government and promising citizens delivery within a certain time frame, the failure to deliver within that time frame does not perhaps put the blame on individuals, because I don't like the whole thing of let's blame KCC, let's blame UEGCL. Those are not people. Those are a collection of people. Someone must take responsibility. Sadly, the responsibility seems to come to the person that made the promise, the one that was the face and voice. And for the sanctity of my trade as a communications person, as the public affairs face, as the corporate engagement and stakeholder engagement honcho in these institutions, they need to safeguard our professional integrity, at least. Or else we'll be having many more Kasiates leaving institutions to safeguard their name.
No, but I don't think that government of Uganda is going to be delivering projects on time, in time, anytime soon.
Why?
It requires a coalition of interests.
Raymond, before projects are commissioned, they will tell you, we have secured financing from the African Export-Import Bank, African Development Bank. For Karuma, we had money coming in from China Exim Bank to the tune of close to $2 billion. So...
but so there are many things that go into project delivery. I think one of the areas where government has failed the most is on acquisition of land for projects. Many of the road projects have simply delayed because of acquisition of land. That the right of way is not there, even when the contractor is available, ready to do work. Someone whose ramshackled house is in the road reserve has gone to court of law, and you cannot run roughshod over that person. I have often appealed to my friends in security, cause some of those people some problems, just maybe send URSB. Let's see, are you in check? Are you paying your rental taxes? So that they also feel the semblance of the state in their life.
But Raymond, you know that the truth of the matter is that those who are actually claiming ownership of that land are not they themselves. It is we who are involved in the project, who know that the project is going to pass here, who go behind the scenes, purchase this land and put proxies and facades.
I've been begging UNRWA, for example, to give us the names of people who've slowed down this Namugongo Road so that we can go and meet them as citizens.
And speak to them.
As citizens, we want to meet them and say, look here, you're delaying a road project.
This is for the greater public good. Because when you're coming to your home in Chariwajara, do you pass your father's land all the way from Boyale up to here? Someone gave land. Why can't you give land for the next day who lives in into Worogoma to have possession of the land.
Yeah, so those
And the reason they don't give you those names is because the guys you're asking for the names are actually the names that should be spoken to.
There's that. Then there's also the financing aspect that oftentimes contractors are on site and they're not being paid. And in projects that have succeeded...
Why are they being paid when, before a project starts, Raymond? There is nowhere pen is put to paper to start a project before the financing is secured. I just gave you examples.
Yes, but like, that's the thing that I've told you, that, you know, you have... So some of the projects which are succeeding in terms of being delivered on time, like Hoima Stadium,
So what you're telling
the companies are using their own money.
Raymond,
Yes.
Sino Hydro was using money coming in from the China Exim Bank.
Yeah.
Still, there was a delay.
But of course, as you know, first of all, you had to hit targets.
What you're saying is, interestingly, the kind of justification for delays that I used to draft in my official statements to the country. But I knew, and I still know in my heart of hearts, that, like Alistair Campbell did say when he was talking about his biggest lie with Tony Blair about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, he said, we didn't lie about the presence of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. No, it just happened not to be true. So let's call out the truth of these issues. Their project delays are occasioned by corruption, incompetence,
yes, they are more
and
complex.
the fact
they are
that
more
there
complex.
are no prohibitive consequences for not delivering projects.
Things are more complex than that. You have a project like Nambole Stadium, which is being run by the UPDF Engineers Brigade. I don't think there's been any corruption in there. It's just that the money hasn't been coming in due time.
But at least they have done a quicker turnaround job than any other person.
Yes, but you have roads like ours in Mubende Fort Portal. The contractor is there, they don't have money, so what do you expect them to do?
Then you have a 21-kilometer northern bypass that has been as a construction site for the last over 20 years.
So those things are a problem to sit at the heart of the people that govern us. I think those are the things that you sit back and say, what legacy are we going to leave behind? What shall we be remembered for? I read a fantastic book called My Story by the leader of the United Arab Emirates. And he was saying, look here, my dad, when I was still a teenager, my dad put me in charge of the construction of the mosque in the house. And I had to deliver it on time. And that's how I learned how to deliver projects on time. So when he started to imagine what Dubai should look like, he wasn't coming from zero. He already knew what he could do. Sometimes it's folly, but we've got to ask those questions. Our Prime Minister, for example, what architectural marvel have they done?
Thank you.
That would make them fit in the shoes to say this project should start and end on time.
It saddens me that possibly the only thing that people remember of the Prime Ministership and the Secretary Generalship, if there is that word that exists, of a good and, a guy I would consider to be industrious and with the proper head screwed on his shoulders, the Right Honorable Mama Babazi, is the blatant lie that he told this country that they are going to construct a how many story NRM headquarters?
Or the building.
The building for the NRM headquarters?
I don't remember. But
and then what do we have today? To see him in 2025 escorting his darling wife, an industrious lady, to come and pick nomination forms from a ramshackle piece of infrastructure in the boroughs of Nakasero Hill. Having promised headquarters.
So those are legacies. That's the thing about the legacy.
If Mama Babas and his dear wife were driving into the basement parking of this multi-story new NRM headquarters, he would walk in there with pride and say, I delivered this. And so our leaders need to understand that just beyond having the flair of moving around in choppers and having chauffeur-driven cars where you park and they open for you, breaking all the traffic rules and pushing through everything that you can because you can, we need to have tangible things that you can attribute yourself to.
At least for us at Grab a Coffee, we promised a live recording. We've delivered. We promised rare access guests. We've delivered. We promised a weekly podcast. We are delivering. On that regard, we are doing our part. We even promised mugs. We have delivered.
We've delivered them branded. That is all the branding on my laptop and my notebook. And yes, as we conclude the program today, I am going to do something that many of you have been asking about. Why does Simon always wear an Under Armour cape on his head? I will not give a full reason as to why I do, but one thing is for sure, none of you has seen Raymond in a cape on this program. Yet none of you have seen me without a cape on the program. So today, in an act of magnanimity and out of promise to Raymond, I am taking off my Under Armour cape. Now you can tell the listeners why I keep my cape on.
The lack of combs in the house.
And I am going to pass it over to Raymond as a guest of friendship.
Please.
And to say, now you two can have a cape once in a while.
I am glad. You know where I come from. Wearing capes is Yaye.
Oh, really? Especially if you turn it around.
Yes, we try not to wear them, so people are not like, this man here is becoming Yaye. Yes, but
considering the fact that now it's even admissible on a ballot paper to have a hat, and even you can brand yourself and say, I'm the old man with a hat. So I'm going to be branding myself. I thought I would brand myself on Grab a Coffee as the guy in a cape. But Raymond has pushed so hard and asked for it, so we can say the guys that interchangeably wear capes.
Thank you so much, Simon. I'm very glad. This is a great gift to start off the week.
Well, I may extend that to our premium subscribers. I think I may start in the new month feeling a bit generous to say every time I record a podcast for a limited period of time, I'll be donating now there will be customized Grab a Coffee capes that I will be gifting to a special chosen subscriber on the program to take that cape as a memento. Will that be you? Well, we'll be telling you how it can be you to share that cape with me.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, our listeners, subscribers, for being with us for this long. Continue to subscribe, like, and share with your friends, exes, landlords, everyone. Share our podcast with those people. But we're also incredibly glad for the feedback that we are getting. And also, there's a host of guests that we now have to get through since we started doing the live.
It's become fashionable now to grab a coffee, and we like it that way. What else are you grabbing if you're not grabbing a coffee?
Yeah.
But even Showmax from MultiChoice that have been so magnanimous in allowing their product and brand to be proudly associated with us, we can thank you more. And yes, as we conclude, Raymond, we need to remind our listeners that we had a very successful live recording where we also gave an opportunity for the guests in the house to ask questions to the guest on the podium. So today, as we conclude this program, we're going to show you just one flashback question from the audience that came in to our guest, Ramadan Gobi, and how he answered.
So a lot of time and effort goes into preparing the budget each year. A lot of effort, weeks and months go into preparing that speech. But as sure as clockwork, it's almost guaranteed that by the end of the financial year, we have seen 2 or 3 supplementary budgets. And in total, that's around about 10% of the original budget, usually. Now, to me, this looks like a sign of fiscal discipline. And I wonder if you look at it the same way, and if you are frustrated by it, as some of us are. Because for me, that is how we end up with projects that start and the announcement that groundbreaking that the budget has been secured, and then they store for so many years. How do you see that when planning is going to speed? And it's something that you're working to have.
Supplementary budgets are in the International Chart of Accounts to enable governments cater for those unforeseen expenditures that may come even a day after approving the budget. You did not anticipate them, and they come. For example, we are here now, but something can happen. A bridge can fall in Katonga, and the people are not crossing. You can't say, you wait until
next financial year.
So they don't close that window of supplementary. But you are right, like everything else in life, a window that allows flexibility sometimes is abused. And I think that's what you are alluding to as fiscal indiscipline. But I want to tell you that supplementaries now in the budget have reduced, are being managed to only those items which were meant for supplementary. But there has also been a structural problem before. And it was manifesting itself in 3 ways. One, we could have institutions that were deliberately because of resource constraint, the Ministry of Finance issues budget ceilings, expenditure limits, that your Ministry of ICT has been given 280 billion budget. But when we are budgeting, we have what we call first calls on the budget. First is debt. If they are demanding any debt from you, pay it. Number 2, statutory obligations, wage, pension, gratuity, pay them. Number 3, fixed costs, rent if you are renting, utilities, and so on and so forth. Those ones, pay them. Then your core function. Now you can't have a budget approved when the core function does not have money. If your core function is to digitize Uganda, you should put in the budget maybe extending the cable of internet to a certain district or something and something. And then after that, other now expenditures come in. Travel abroad, workshops, this and that.
Meals.
New cars.
By the way, meals are not catered for in government. There is that thing I've seen you abusing in social media, that they are special meals with big money. Special meals is a classification for meals for security forces. Internationally, they are called special meals. So the food which feeds our soldiers of UPDF, the policemen and so on who are on duty, is called special meals. But some politicians are abusing it, and the social media people, to show that government doesn't care. They are putting money in special meals. Maybe Ramadan is having special meal.
Oysters
and MPs, yes. No. Those billions, it's about 388 billion.
It's for portion beans.
Is for portioned beans and the dry rations for our soldiers. And now, there were those officers in the government, accounting officers and others, who now play a game, a budget game. I've told you how we should budget, ideally, starting with the debt up to others. For them, they start with the others. They put money there. And they leave out a core activity or a statutory obligation. Like some people, they don't allocate wage, and yet they are working. Well knowing that when they come and present a supplementary of something like a wage or something critical, everybody will say, no, give them the money because we are going to create a crisis. So that's a budget game, which we have been trying to fight and stamp out. The other cause of supplementary was at appropriation, where now we could take the budget to Parliament as government, approved by cabinet, and we have allocated money in a way which we feel is optimal. But then at Parliament they say, no, you are not going to put money on Lubowa Hospital. I'm giving you a practical example. You have been debating these things, that Lubowa Hospital is a conduit of money. That hospital is not being built. We are not approving the budget. Then they would cut the money at Parliament and now put it on other items. She has been talking about certain things, that how can you allocate money to certain activities and you leave some critical ones like health facility, so the members of Parliament could say, instead of giving 200 billion to construct Lubowa, let us distribute it in the districts to do health center 3, because there it's going to augur well with your politics feelings as Ugandans. Facts tend to be weaker than feelings. Feelings are stronger, and that now creates a gap, because Lubowa Hospital is a government obligation. Parliament approved that we construct a hospital at Lubowa to cater for those diseases which we take abroad, cardiovascular diseases. But he has talked about project implementation and its challenges. Loboa Hospital fell in those challenges right at the beginning. It's a project which was conceived in 2015. This is 2025. It's still be ongoing. But it took 5 years without even starting, because we started no land. That land was alternative, but the project was approved. Didn't have land, did not have a lot of things I don't want to go into. But government signed on an agreement with the financial institutions, with the contractors, that we are going to build a hospital. Now, there is no way you can come and you say, no, first pack that one, it's not working. Don't put money there. Put it on health facilities. That's not how government obligations work. Uganda is one of those countries that does not default on its obligations. That's why they trust us to give us money without collateral. Government does not give an asset that this is now the collateral or the security. No. Why do they trust us? Because when we say we pay you on this debt, we pay you. So those are now the monies you could find in a supplementary. We go back to Parliament when the year has started and we tell them, we brought you to our hospital, you did not put money there, but this is an obligation. We must put this money in promissory notes. It's not going to be spent today, but it must be in the promissory notes for us to be able to satisfy the requirements of the agreement. Now, I will have to put that supplemental, and when you read as a citizen, you say, but what's wrong with Ramadan and his team? They never knew that they needed money here, all this. Others would say, but why are you insisting on Loboa Hospital? Why don't you leave it? And by the way, in Uganda, there are those people who do relationships like that. You have started obligation, halfway, you say, no, I've changed my mind. That's not how government will do work. So that's the second cause of those supplementaries. The third one was inadequate budget, what we call under budgeting. Because of the budget constraint I told you, you fail to get enough money to a certain critical item. For example, we have, say, some roads. You will find a road, you find it in a supplementary, and you wonder, this certificate you are paying in a supplementary, didn't you know that you were supposed to build a road and you budget for it? I did not have enough fiscal space for it. But a budget is like an aircraft, or an economy is like an aircraft. If you are at Entebbe and you are going to board Emirates, they have to ensure that the weight of that plane is exactly equal to what the maker of the plane dictated in the protocol, that it should be this weight for it to get up, 30 tons. If it is 30.00001 tons, the pilot does not take it off the ground. He will tell the ground handlers, get off some luggage. The weight is not what and the gauges are there. Now, the economy is like that. But when you fly to Dubai, and that plane is going to land in Dubai, then it offloads some people, unloads others, and continues to London, it might create more fiscal space there, halfway the journey. So in an economy, we run it also in such a way that at the time of budgeting, you may not have the fiscal space, because maybe there were some variables which, like some debt, which you had to pay in terms of amortization. But once you have moved 7 months, then you create more fiscal space. And you say, now you can bring on the other project and we move. The thing I want you to understand is the fact, actually. Supplementary budgets can be an abuse, but that abuse has gone down by ensuring that it is only those requirements which were anticipated by the lawmakers that are going in the supplementary, and reducing the other abuses, those three which I've talked about, which could sometimes come in.
But then subsequently from today, when we drop this podcast and this appendage question and answer session, every single work day from Monday to Thursday next week, we'll be sharing with you one question and the answer to that question from our live recording. So in other words, keep a date with us at Grab a Coffee. Every single day we'll have something for you. Until the next episode.
All right, cheers. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.